From the moment I, Sarah Wilson, first met my mother-in-law, Barbara Reynolds, it was obvious that she had an issue with me. It wasn't just a matter of us not getting along or having different personalities. She seemed to view me as a threat from the instant we were introduced. As an emergency room nurse, I'm used to handling tense situations, but Barbara's hostility was something else entirely. There was something unsettling about the way she looked at me, as if I was some kind of competition when it came to her son Michael. It was as if she thought my presence would somehow diminish her role in his life. The fact that she was a successful former beauty salon chain owner, while I came from a more modest background, seemed to fuel her disdain. Rather than accepting the situation gracefully, Barbara would constantly try to put me down, sometimes subtly, sometimes not so subtly. Her comments about my profession were particularly cutting, little digs about how noble it was to be just a nurse, or pointed remarks about the salary gap between Michael's investment analyst position and my own career. If you're wondering why I went ahead and married Michael, despite his mother being such a persistent source of negativity in my life, it's because he has always stood up for me. Every time Barbara has tried to belittle or insult me, Michael has been right there, firmly on my side, telling her to stop. "Mother," he would say, his voice firm and unwavering, "I won't tolerate you speaking to Sarah that way." It's one of the main reasons I felt confident moving forward with our relationship, even with Barbara's dark cloud hanging over us. Michael has never let her get away with her hurtful behavior, always making it clear that we're a team. Of course, this only seems to make Barbara resent me more. The fact that her son doesn't allow her to undermine me appears to add fuel to the fire. Background. For a bit of context, Michael and I got married last year, and this past week we celebrated our first wedding anniversary. Michael, being the thoughtful person he is, planned a grand celebration for the occasion. It was completely unexpected on my part. I had just finished a long shift at the emergency room and was thinking of a quiet dinner together. But Michael had decided to invite all our friends and family, determined to make it a memorable event. Everything seemed to be going perfectly until we hit a small hiccup. There was a logistics issue with the cake. It couldn't be delivered to the venue and needed to be picked up in person. The bakery was located quite far from where we were hosting the party, and while Michael could have gone himself, we didn't want him to be away that long. He had worked so hard planning everything and wanted to be there to greet our guests. We decided to reach out to our family through a group text, asking if anyone would be willing to pick up the cake. Given the distance, we even offered to compensate them for their trouble. To my surprise, Barbara immediately volunteered to help. "Don't worry about a thing," her message read, appearing suspiciously quickly. "I'll make sure to bring the cake safely." Given our history, I felt a knot form in my stomach at her eager offer. As a nurse, I've learned to trust my instincts about people, and something felt off. But I pushed those doubts aside, hoping that maybe this was Barbara's way of trying to make amends. At the party. When the party was in full swing, Barbara arrived with the cake. Our venue, an elegant event space we'd chosen for its warm, intimate atmosphere, was filled with our guests, my fellow nurses from the Michael's colleagues from his investment firm, and our closest family members. Neither Michael nor I thought to check the cake right away. We were caught up in greeting everyone and enjoying the celebration. Barbara placed the cake on the designated table, and I noticed an unusual glint in her eyes. She seemed unusually eager to participate in the cake-cutting ceremony, insisting that she wanted to unveil it herself. At the time, I was too preoccupied with our guests to register her suspicious behavior, though now I wish I'd paid more attention to how she kept positioning her phone, as if preparing to capture something specific. When it was finally time to cut the cake, Barbara called everyone's attention. "Gather round," she announced theatrically. "You won't want to miss this special moment." She pulled away the bakery box with flourish, revealing what should have been our anniversary cake. Instead, written across it in bold, mocking letters were the words, "Cheers to 365 days of gold digging." The room fell silent. I felt my face burning with humiliation as I stood there in my neat dress, still wearing the simple pearl necklace my mother had saved up to give me for my nursing school graduation. Before Michael or I could even process what we were seeing, Barbara whipped out her phone and immediately took pictures of our shocked expressions, laughing as if she had just delivered the most brilliant joke. "Mother, what the hell are you doing?" Michael's voice cut through the silence, anger evident in his tone. Barbara seemed completely unfazed by the tension she had created. "Oh, come on," she said casually. "You and your wife are way too tightly wound. I just wanted to have a little fun." Confrontation. I was completely humiliated. Standing there in front of our friends and family, including several of my colleagues from the emergency room who had come straight from their shifts, I couldn't believe Barbara's cruelty. "Who exactly was this supposed to be funny for?" I asked, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Because no one here seems to be laughing." Barbara rolled her eyes and insisted that I was overreacting. "Oh, please," she said with a dismissive wave of her hand. "You're turning a light-hearted situation into something bigger than it needs to be." "Light-hearted?" Michael stepped forward, his professional composure cracking. "You deliberately humiliated my wife at our anniversary celebration." That's when Barbara dropped all pretense of this being a joke. "Well," she said, her voice dripping with disdain, "I can't be the only one who's thought it. After all, she's just a nurse marrying into our family. Let's be honest about what's really going on here." I gasped audibly, and I could feel my face burning with embarrassment. Never in my career, not during the most challenging traumas in the not during the longest night shifts, had I felt so exposed and humiliated. My mother, who had worked double shifts as a waitress to help put me through nursing school, was being held back by my sister, her face red with anger. Without hesitation, Michael told his mother that she had crossed a line and needed to apologize immediately. His voice was firm and resolute. It was clear he wasn't going to tolerate any further disrespect. He informed her that if she didn't apologize to me right then and there, she would have to leave our celebration. The revelation. Barbara scoffed at Michael's ultimatum, looking around the room as if seeking support. Finding none, she became even more defensive. "Oh, come on. You're really going to throw me out over something so silly?" That's when I'd had enough. Years of dealing with difficult situations in the had taught me how to handle crisis moments, and this was certainly one of them. "You know what's really sad, Barbara? You haven't learned anything from what happened with Robert." The mention of her ex-husband's name made her pale slightly. She tried to maintain her composure, but I could see her confidence wavering. "What are you talking about?" she snapped, but the flicker of recognition in her eyes told me she knew exactly what I meant. "Let's talk about why Robert left you. Remember his vacation with his friends? The one where you faked a heart attack?" I kept my voice level, the way I would when delivering difficult news to patients' families. Several gasps echoed through the room. Barbara's smug expression transformed into barely contained panic. "That's right," I continued. "Robert was on his annual trip with his high school friends, something he looked forward to all year. But you couldn't stand not being the center of attention, could you? So you called him in the middle of the night, pretending to have a heart attack. As a nurse, I find that particularly repulsive, using a serious medical emergency as a prank." "You have no right," Barbara started, but Michael cut her off. "No, Mother. Sarah has every right." Michael's voice was firm. "Dad rushed home terrified, thinking you were dying. He cut his trip short, missed his best friend's retirement celebration, only to find you perfectly fine, watching TV and eating snacks. That was the final straw for him, wasn't it?" The confrontation continues. "You're just like your father," Barbara spat, her composure completely shattering. No sense of humor, both of you. Always taking everything so seriously. Drawing on my experience of dealing with agitated patients in the I kept my voice calm but firm. No, Barbara. A sense of humor is about laughing together, not at someone's expense. What you do isn't funny. It's cruel. You manipulate people who care about you and then act surprised when they've had enough. Looking around the room, I could see understanding dawning on many faces. Several guests who had known Barbara and Robert as a couple were nodding slowly, pieces of a puzzle finally falling into place. You know what? I continued, maintaining my professional demeanor despite my shaking hands. If you want to act like a child, then you'll be treated like one. Until you can learn to behave like an adult and show basic respect to others, you won't be welcome in our home. And if we have children, they won't be exposed to this kind of toxic behavior either. Some of our guests actually chuckled at that, which seemed to infuriate Barbara even more. Her face turned an alarming shade of red. As a medical professional, I couldn't help but notice her elevated stress response. Without another word, Barbara turned on her heel and stormed out of the party. The door slammed behind her with enough force to make the glasses on the nearby tables rattle. As soon as she left, the tension in the room visibly lifted. Several guests came forward to offer their support, including Robert's sister, who hugged me tightly and whispered, "It's about time someone stood up to her." Michael disposed of the ruined cake, and we continued our celebration. Our friends rallied around us, and one of my fellow nurses even made an emergency run to the nearest bakery to get us a replacement cake. In a way, Barbara's attempt to ruin our anniversary had actually brought us closer to our true friends and family. The aftermath: phone calls. In the days that followed, my phone began buzzing constantly with calls from Barbara. Each voicemail was more dramatic than the last. "Sarah," she said in one particularly vitriolic message, "you've turned my son against me during the most difficult time in my life. Do you have any idea what I'm going through with the divorce? And now you're spreading lies about why Robert left." Her latest threat was to sue me for defamation. "You had no right to share private information about my marriage," she ranted. "I'll see you in court for damaging my reputation." After hearing these messages, Michael finally had enough. He called his mother, putting her on speakerphone in our living room where I sat still in my scrubs after my evening shift. "Mother," his voice carried the same authority he used in his investment meetings, "Sarah won't be apologizing to you. What you did at our anniversary party was cruel and deliberate." "But Michael, honey," Barbara's voice immediately switched to a sweeter tone, "you don't understand. I'm your mother. I carried you for 9 months, sacrificed everything for you." "Stop right there." Michael cut her off. "I'm Sarah's husband, and she comes first now. Your behavior has to change, or you won't be part of our lives. It's that simple." The line went silent for a moment before Barbara hung up. Minutes later, Michael's phone lit up with a long text message. "My dearest son, how could you betray your own mother like this? After everything I've done for you, you're letting that nurse turn you against me. Mark my words, she'll show her true colors eventually. I always knew she was just after our family's money." 3 months later. 3 months have passed since our last update. Michael and I have officially cut all contact with Barbara, finally blocking her number after weeks of relentless harassment. Working in the I deal with real emergencies every day. Her manufactured dramas seem even more absurd in comparison. Robert, who heard about the anniversary cake incident, reached out to express his support. Over coffee one afternoon near my hospital, he shared his perspective. "Sarah, I spent 30 years dealing with her pranks. They started small, but they always escalated. The fake heart attack was just the final straw. Currently, Barbara and Robert are going through a bitter divorce, and she's doing everything she can to make the process more difficult for him. Through my work in emergency medicine, I've learned that sometimes the most serious wounds aren't physical, and Robert clearly needs time to heal from the emotional trauma Barbara inflicted. Phil deserves to be free from her manipulation and toxic behavior. I sincerely hope he finds peace soon. Meanwhile, Michael and I are focusing on our life together. My work saving lives in the his career in investment analysis, and our shared future. We've learned that setting strong boundaries is sometimes the healthiest choice you can make, even when it comes to family. While it's unfortunate that our family dynamics have become so complicated because of Barbara's actions, we're committed to prioritizing our well-being and happiness. After all, as I often tell my patients, healing can't begin until you remove yourself from what's causing the harm.